Hello everyone and welcome to Northern Maple. As promised, today we're going to break down what technocratic Marxism actually means, what history reveals about this ideology, and how it's relevant to Canada today. By the end, you'll see why this ideology threatens the values our forefathers fought to protect. As Canadians, we cherish individual freedom, personal responsibility, and the free market. These are true Canadian values, unlike being humble, which I would argue is a personality trait. And now that we're on the topic of humility being a Canadian value, I would like to say that I strongly resent Carney saying humility is a Canadian value, especially for the academic he claims to be. A value is something that is deliberately cultivated, not inherent. That's called a personality trait. And lots of Canadians have that trait because a lot of us grew up in easy times. Do you know which generation isn't humble at all, yet is just as Canadian as I am? Boomers. They are much more assertive than my generation and younger generations because they grew up in the post-World War II era. Just saying. Words have meaning, and these meanings have purpose, which is why I spend episodes going over definitions and concepts. I want there to be no confusion as to what terms like globalism, technocracy, Marxism, supranational, collectivism, capitalism, free trade, and so many more actually mean. And on that note, let's get this episode started. First, let's define technocracy. The term comes from Greek roots meaning rule by skill. In practice, it's governance by so-called experts, scientists, engineers, and our new favorite, economists, who claim superior knowledge to make decisions for everyone else. Think of it as a system where unelected elites armed with data and algorithms dictate policies on everything from the economy to your daily life. Technocrats promise efficiency. They'll optimize society like a machine, cutting waste and solving problems with cold logic. But here's the problem. This setup dismisses the wisdom of ordinary people and the democratic process. It's elitism on steroids, replacing your voice with a spreadsheet. History knows that no expert, no matter how smart, can fully grasp the complexities of human needs or the value of personal freedom. Technocracy risks creating a nanny state, or worse, straight up communism. Now, let's tackle Marxism. Developed by Karl Marx in the 19th century, Marxism pits classes against each other. The bourgeoisie, who own businesses and property, versus the proletariat, the workers. Marx claimed capitalism is inherently unfair, exploiting workers and concentrating wealth. His fix? A violent revolution to seize private property, abolish free markets, and create a socialist state that supposedly leads to a classless utopia called, you guessed it, communism. Conservatives see Marxism for what it is, a recipe for tyranny. It destroys incentives to innovate. It punishes success and hands immense power to the state. History shows Marxist regimes, so think Soviet gulags or the Venezuela's collapse, lead to poverty, oppression, and eroded freedoms. Marxism's obsession with equality of outcome ignores human nature and our God-given right to pursue the path of our own choice. So what happens when you combine technocracy and Marxism? Well, you get a technocratic Marxist regime, a nightmare where elite experts use high-tech tools to enforce Marxist ideals. Imagine a government of scientists and planners yielding AI to control the economy, redistribute wealth, and erase private property, all in the name of equality. It's sold as a utopia, technology ensuring fairness, with no more greedy capitalists. But it's not that hard to spot the red flags immediately. This system doubles down on centralized power, stripping away your rights and handing them to unaccountable technocrats. The Marxists push for collectivism, their push for collectivism crushes individual initiative, while technocracy's reliance on data and algorithm ignores moral values and human dignity. Who picks these experts? And what stops them from becoming a new ruling class, lording over us with their fancy degrees and supercomputers? This hybrid is a direct threat to liberty, faith, and the free market. If I were to summarize what a technocratic Marxist regime looks like, it's this. A population ruled, not led, by expert elites who dictate every aspect of their lives in the name of equality. The property of the rich, those who worked tirelessly to build their wealth, will be taken in the name of equality. However, the only equality among that population is that of poverty. Why do I think that? Well, let's look at history to see where this toxic blend of technocracy and Marxism has reared its head. Spoiler alert, the results aren't very pretty at all. Exhibit A, the Soviet Union in the 1920s to the 50s. After the Bolsheviks took power, they embraced Marxism, seizing industries and crushing private enterprise. They also flirted with technocracy through Go's plan, a bureaucratic agency of supposed experts who planned the economy down to the last tractor. That's right, down to the last tractor. In the 1920s, leaders like Trotsky pushed scientific socialism, using industrial data to force rapid modernization. But the Soviet experiment was a disaster. Central planning led to shortages, famines, and millions of deaths. The technocratic elite were often loyalists, not geniuses, and Stalin's paranoia purged anyone with real expertise. This wasn't just a failure of Marxism's collectivism. It showed technocracy's arrogance, assuming planners could outsmart the free market. The Soviet Union collapse in 1991 proved conservatives right. Freedom and markets beat centralized control every time. Exhibit B, Maoist China in the 1950s to 70s. Mao was a die-hard Marxist, hell-bent on erasing capitalism through collectivization and the Cultural Revolution. He also had a technocratic streak, idolizing science as a tool to leapfrog the West. The Great Leap Forward tasked engineers and planners with absurd projects, like backyard steel furnaces, because that's a good idea, to industrialize overnight. The result, catastrophe. Tens of millions died in famines and the economy tanked. Mao's distrust of intellectuals, who, by the way, many were exiled and killed, undermined any technocratic potential. This shows the folly of both ideologies. Marxism's war on individual success and technocracy's blind faith in top-down schemes. Conservatives know that progress comes from free people, not state mandates. As for Exhibit C, Cuba from the 1960s to present. After the 1959 revolution, Fidel Castro's regime adopted Marxist principles, nationalizing businesses and preaching equality. Cuba also leaned technocratic in areas like healthcare, where state-backed scientists built a medical system praised by its followers. Biotech and vaccine programs were run by experts, not the people. But when you look closer, Cuba's a mess. Its economy is stagnant, its people are oppressed, and dissenters are jailed. The technocratic healthcare system can't mask the failure of Marxist policies, which choke innovation and reward compliance. Conservatives value charity and private enterprise, not state-controlled equality that leaves everyone equally poor. Now, these are just 3 examples of failed technocratic Marxist regimes. But we could keep going on. Modern China, with its Marxist rhetoric and tech-driven surveillance state, is a technocratic Marxist model. Brief experiments like Chile under Allende, where socialist planners tested cybernetic systems, is another model of this. No nation has fully realized this dystopia, thankfully, because its contradictions collapse under scrutiny. Marxism's chaos and technocracy's elitism don't mix well. It's a house built on on a weak foundation. Technocracy's obsession with control clashes with Marxism's revolutionary chaos. Both demand you surrender your freedom to a state that claims to know better. Conservatives understand that true progress comes from individuals, families, and communities, not from bureaucrats or algorithms. These regimes also ignore human nature. People want to work, innovate, and worship freely, not be cogs in a collectivist machine. History is clear. Centralized planning fails, whether it's Marxist redistribution or technocratic micromanagement. Today, we see echoes of this in big tech censorship, or in globalist schemes like the WF's Great Reset. Excuse me. So we've exposed technocracy as an elitist overreach and Marxism as freedom-killing ideology. Together, they form a technocratic Marxist regime that's anti-liberty, anti-faith, and anti-prosperity. From the Soviet Union's collapse to Cuba's decay, history warns us. Centralized power, whether by expert or ideologues, leads to ruin. As conservatives, we stand for individual rights, free markets, and limited government. Let's keep fighting these dangerous ideas, dig into history, promote entrepreneurship, and vote for leaders who value freedom. Basically, a technocratic Marxist regime will allow you to survive if famine hasn't hit yet, but you will never thrive. You will never be able to act on your aspirations. You will never be able to create a better life for your children. And you most certainly wouldn't be able to listen to channels like this. You will have no freedoms, but somehow they promise you will be happy. The more I learn about our nation's history and that of the world, the clearer an image is painted for me. I had previously mentioned that Canadians have been conditioned to be politically illiterate. So many of us have zero interest in politics, despite the crucial role it plays in all our lives. Why is that? Why hasn't the government ensured that our education system raises young Canadians with a thorough understanding of our nation and our government? Canadians who can clearly articulate why they are voting the way they are. Why is that we have high-level academics who don't know what globalism is? Why is it that we are a population that makes decisions based on our feelings and not the facts? My guess? It's probably for the same reason why high school students aren't taught about finances and the value of contributing to a TFSA as often as possible. Now this is my opinion, that global elites, those who have publicly stated that they control our government, do not want our nation to be able to critically think, voice educated opinions on government policies, and they certainly don't want people to be financially independent. Why? Because a population of independent thinkers are not easy to control or steal from. Now, this might seem like a depressing end to an episode, but there's always hope. People are waking up to the truth. Like a toddler, we need to relentlessly ask why. Never be satisfied with a headline. Always ask why and never stop. That's freedom of thought, and that is a true Canadian value. I will see you all on Saturday for this week's political roundup, which is promising to be quite eventful with all the turmoil happening within the House of Commons and the Liberal Party this week. See you then. Bye.